Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back into my craft room after what feels like a really long time. I've been away for 3 weeks. I can't even remember how many weeks it is since I've done a live. But thank you for joining me. So it's been a busy old time. Before I start telling you about what's happened in my world and what's happening in the Stampin' Up world, I just need to check that it looks as if you can see and hear me okay. While I've been away, there has been at least one and I think two updates for the Facebook business suite, which is what I use to do this live. And that means that sometimes there are unforeseen consequences. So I want to see if you can hear me. It looks like you can hear me okay. I can hear me on my iPad, but if you're watching at home live, please let me know if you can hear and see me okay. I had a lot of problems before I went away on holiday with the sound cutting out and all sorts of things. So let's hope the updates have improved things and we're not going to have anything like that happening today. Oh, thank you, Marjorie. It's lovely to see you as well. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm hoping everything sounds okay. Can you let me know? And it looks like Mary's here as well. Welcome, Mary. Oh, well, I've had the most fantastic trip. For those of you that didn't know, we were lucky enough to go on a cruise from Liverpool to Quebec in Canada via Newfoundland, which was very exciting. I'm giving some of the highlights over on my, or here in fact, this on my Facebook business page in the mornings. I'm doing crafting later in the day for you, so if you're not remotely interested in other people's holidays, make sure you check in the evenings or first thing next morning when you'll be able to see a crafting post. But I have also been including some information and photos on my holidays because lots and lots of people have asked about it. So yes, we had an amazing trip. We drove to Liverpool, we stayed overnight with some lovely friends, did some things with them, including a very good personal guided sightseeing trip of Liverpool with them, and then boarded the ship in the afternoon. It was fabulous. Mary's saying it all seems good and it's good to have me back. Thank you so much, Mary. That's lovely, and I'm really pleased that everything seems to be working fine technically. So yes, and then off we sailed, really. It's always very exciting setting sail on a ship for places unknown. I ticked off two things on my bucket list. One was to cross the Atlantic by sea, which we did, and one was to visit Newfoundland, which we also did. So that was fabulous. So we had, I think it was 4 days at sea, and for most of that we couldn't see anything. No land, no ships, no nothing. We had some whale watching experts from the Orca organisation on board, so there were whales. We did see some gannets and some fulmar, and so that was all really nice. And then we stopped at St John's, which is the capital of Newfoundland. It's also the capital of Labrador province, which I hadn't realised. That was wonderful. Then we had another day at sea, and then we started touring some of the ports on the Gulf of St Lawrence and the St Lawrence Seaway, and the river, going up into Quebec province. They'd had a lot of wind the week before we got there, so a lot of the leaves had been blown off the trees, but we still saw some absolutely fantastic autumn colour, much brighter than anything I get here, and I live in the beautiful New Forest, so our trees are pretty good. We did all sorts of exciting things there. Then we left and we were supposed to stop somewhere else in Newfoundland, but the weather had other ideas, and in fact, Storm Babette, which I know hit parts of the UK very badly, was apparently formed of 3 storms which joined together to create this huge storm. And one of those storms was right where we were. So they had closed the port on Newfoundland, so we couldn't stop in there. So we just headed back across the Atlantic, and the thought was that we would have extra time in Belfast, which was the last place we were stopping. However, that didn't happen. Yes, it was an interesting trip across the North Atlantic, and let's just say we spent 2 days with winds and seas of force 10 and then a day at hurricane force 12. The ship was fantastic, the staff and crew were amazing, All credit to the captain and his bridge team, and also to the waiting staff who continued to give you silver service in the dining room, even whilst half the time they were collecting things that were sliding off the tables. So yeah, absolutely amazing. The theatre shows continued. They were singing and dancing on stage. I don't know how they did it, because standing up in a corridor was quite a challenge for me, so I certainly couldn't have been dancing across a stage. But we did have an absolutely fantastic time. If you're interested in seeing more, hearing more details, seeing some photos, then keep checking my Facebook page over the next few days while I finish off telling you all about it. So this has been a pretty busy week, as you can imagine. I took Monday off. We only got back late on Sunday, so I knew I was going to need a day to draw breath and start the washing machine churning. And this week I've just been trying to kind of catch up, see what I've missed, get through my emails, and then start preparing for my classes, which start again next week, which I'm looking forward to. Things that I need to remind you about. My next order, my next group order, is going in a week on Saturday, which will be the 4th of November. So if there's anything you need, particularly for your Christmas crafting, probably a good idea to make sure I order it for you then, rather than leave it too much longer. Although obviously there is still time. That's only the beginning of November. What else? Yes, if I add something to a group order for you, then you just pay a share of the shipping, so that will cost you £1.40. So it's a cheaper way than getting an individual order delivered to your home, and as long as you can pick it up from my home or from a class, then that should work well for you. If you would like to come to my December card class, either the in-person one or the one by post, then I need to have your bookings by the 3rd of November, which is a week today. And if you'd like more information on that, just drop me an email or pop me over a message and I can sort that out for you. If you're on my mailing list anyway, then I'll be sending you a reminder to your email inbox on Monday. And finally, we are in the last few days of the offer for joining Stampin' Up. The offer is to celebrate 35 years of Stampin' Up, and therefore you can either pay 35% less or you can get 35% more. I've already had somebody join my team, which is fantastic, and if you would like to, then you have until the 31st of October. Once we get past the end of the month, then that's it. If you've got any questions on joining Stampin' Up, then let me know. You can join to run classes and things like I do, or you can just join for it to support your hobby, because everything you buy has a discount. So it's a really, really good deal at the moment. Okay, let me move my little reminder list out of the way. So what are we doing today? Well, I didn't have much time to prepare anything, so I thought, okay, let's make some quick cards using some of my favourite patterned paper. So it's the Winter Meadow paper pack, and I'm just using one sheet from that, and I've made 7 cards, so it's kind of a one sheet wonder really. So I'm going to show you the paper I'm using. I'll show you how I've cut it. If you haven't got the identical paper to me, you may have one that will work in just the same kind of way, and if you haven't, then hopefully I will still give you some ideas to kind of jumpstart what you might like to do. Now, I need a bit of washi tape to cover the camera lens. I think I can remember how to do this. I did a test run earlier because it felt like such a long time since I'd done a Facebook Live. And it all worked fine and I remembered everything, so let's hope I can do that again. Oh gosh, this washi tape's a little bit old. Have I got another one there? No. I think I should have used this one a bit sooner. No, it's just kind of shredding. Okay, put that in the bin. Right, in that case, I haven't got anything else close by that I can reach, so look away from the camera and I'll tell you when you can look back. What I don't want is for you to start to feel seasick as I move everything around. So here we go. Let's... Ooh, they have moved some things. They've moved some buttons. Okay, let's mirror the screen. I think that's the right way. So I will look upside down at the moment, if you are still looking. But hopefully that will mean that everything on my desk is the right way up. Yes. So it's working the way it used to. They've just put the button in a different place. It's actually better. So for the first time in quite a long time, there is an improvement that I can actually see after the update. So that has to be good. Okay, now I had all sorts of problems previously when I moved the camera because my sound kept disappearing. So what I would really like you to do is to tell me if the sound is still okay. I'm going to try and hold this microphone lead out of the way without compromising anything. Not perfect. We've got another lead here, haven't we? Let's try and move that one as well. Leads are the bane of my life. I'm still trying to find a really good solution to them getting in the way. Oh, thank you, Mary. Brilliant. Still okay. That's what we like to hear. Let's see if this will work. Try and keep that one out of the way. Okay, I'm just going to try and loop this cable one more time. And then we'll get started. Let me put something pretty for you to look at. There we are. Okay, we've still got a little bit of cable in there. Can I do one more thing that won't cause a problem? There we go. Aha! I think we're there. I think we're there. Right, so this is the paper I'm using. As I say, this is from the Winter Meadow pack, which is in the Autumn and Winter catalogue. I've got it here to show you. On pages 36, 37, I can't get the whole catalogue underneath, but there's some beautiful samples here. You can see some of the paper shown here, and then some pictures here, but I don't think, as always, the catalogue really does justice to it. They are beautiful watercolour illustrations. And let me just lift that up and try and show you a little bit of a close-up. So this one has got foliage on two diagonally opposite corners. It's got a little bit more down here and a little bit less up there. The colours are soft blues and greens. They're really lovely. And I've just gone completely blank as to what I was going to say next. Oh yes, I know. These are lovely for Christmas cards, but they don't have to be Christmas cards. So I've made a variety of different cards, which you'll see in a minute, and some are Christmas, but some are definitely not Christmas. So I'm just going to pull out, I've pre-cut some card. I've got a whole pile of embellishments here. Let's put those there. I made 7 cards from this sheet. I don't know if I will be able to make all 7 with you this afternoon, but I will make a jolly good go, and the ones that I can't get made, if we run out of time, I can at least show you. So oh gosh, that was noisy. I'm just pulling out my stamps from the bucket here, and then I'll show you the cutting plan, and I'll show you what I'm going to be using as well as the paper. Okay, so I picked out some colours which were listed on the paper packaging, and those are the ones that I'm going to be using. So both card and ink, I'm using Blueberry Bushel, Shaded Spruce, Moody Mauve, Garden Green and Misty Moonlight. So I've got 2 greens, 2 blues, and I don't even know what this colour this is, a kind of crushed strawberry colour. So that's my ink pads. The stamps that I'm going to use are Go To Greetings, Layering Leaves. I'm using both the leaf, the punch that goes with this, which is called the Bow Punch, and also some of the sentiments. I'm using the Christmas Classics stamp set, and I'm using Brightest Glow. So there we go, I've got 2 sentiment stamp sets. I've got a Christmas one and I've got a non-Christmas one. And let me just move this out of the way and show you my cutting plan. I'm hoping this is going to show up okay on the camera. Let's see. Yeah, it's not enormous, is it? But it's not too bad. Let's move that up just a little bit, try and get the bottom in view. Okay, so I've got my 12-inch square piece of paper here, and as I said to you, if you're cutting along with me, I've got it up this way, so I've got more foliage in the bottom right and I've got the smaller foliage corner in the top left. And I'm just going to make 2 vertical cut marks in it first of all. So This one down here is 5 1/4 inches in from the left hand side, and this one here is 4 1/2 inches in from the right hand side. So let me just do that first of all. I'll bring in my trimmer, bring in my paper. So once again, I've got the smaller corner at the top, the bigger one at the bottom. It doesn't matter, it will look lovely however you cut this paper, but if you want yours to look like my cards, then that's the way I had it. So first of all, I'm going to cut this at 5 1/4 inches. And then I want to cut from this side that way, so I'm going to turn it over, turn it upside down, and then cut it at 4 1/2 inches. Okay, and let me just turn those back that way, and then you can see what I've got here. Okay, so I cut this left hand side at 5 1/4 inches, and then I cut the right hand side at 4 1/2 inches, and then this leaves me with a strip in the middle as well. I'm just going to rub out some of the pencil. I wrote on here just so I remembered which way up I had the paper, so let me just rub out that pencil. And then we're going to cut each of these pieces again, but I'm just going to set those aside for the moment and work on this one. So this one I'm going to cut up from the bottom at 5 1/4, and then I'm going to cut again at 5 1/4. So here 5 1/4, 5 1/4. So let's just do that. I'm going to keep the last piece as well. So let's cut this at 5 1/4. That's one piece. 5 1/4. That's two pieces, and then that leaves me with this piece here, which measures 5 1/4 by 1 1/2. Okay, so let's bring back this middle piece. So this was kind of the leftover after I'd cut the other two, and starting at the top, I'm going to cut it at 5 3/4 and then 5 1/4. So yes, yeah, 5 3/4, 5 1/4. So let me turn it. 5 3/4 and then 5 1/4. There we are. Now it does leave me with this tiny little piece here, which actually I didn't use. I might have been able to punch something out of it, but I haven't used that piece. And then finally, I have this piece here, and I'm going to cut this at 4 1/2 inches up from the bottom, and then 4 1/2 inches again. So 4 1/2, 4 1/2, and then that leaves me a piece. And you know, I have a feeling I actually cut, just looking at the pattern on this, I think I actually cut down, but it doesn't matter, it'll all work. You'll see what I mean when I show you the cards I've already made. So this leftover piece is 4 1/2 by 3, but it doesn't matter really whether you start from the top or the bottom, it's just whether they're all going to look like mine. Okay, if anybody needs those measurements again, let me know, but I'm just going to keep going. Oh, hi Sandy, lovely to have you joining us. Yes, this pattern paper is absolutely gorgeous. I really, really love it. So I'm going to start off with, what should we start off with? This one. So I've called these easy cards. They mostly are easy cards. One or two of them have got a little bit more detail on them, but they're not difficult at all. All right, so here's this one. So this uses two of the pieces, one of the leftovers and one that I cut from the center strip. And I've just glued them onto a layer of white. The stamping goes on the white, there's some embellishments and some layering, and that's it. So really quite a quick and easy card. So I'm going to make that card again. I've changed the colours around just a little bit, just so you've got two different ones to have a look at. So here are the measurements if you want them. hoping that those will show okay. And let me find my pieces of paper. I think it's these. Yes, there we go. So my card base is 5 3/4 of an inch by 11.5 inches, scored at 5 3/4. And this time round I'm using blueberry bushel. I've got a contrast layer which is 5.5 inches square. My 2 paper pieces measure 5. Oh, that doesn't measure 5 1/4. That one measures 5 1/4. I must have picked up the wrong one. Must be that one. That's better. 5 1/4 by 1 1/2 and 5 1/4 by 2 1/4. And then finally I have a piece of white card which I'm going to glue these onto, which measures 5 1/4 inches square. So essentially you won't see the top and bottom of it, you'll only see the bit in the middle where I'm going to stamp. But it's much easier to have an entire layer that you glue your paper onto. The whole thing is much more stable as you're working with it. So let me know if you need those measurements again. So the first thing I'm going to do is do my stamping on the front. Now for this I did a very straightforward thing. I just put my paper on here and then drew a line to mark where it was showing. Now you can turn the papers round and decide which way you want your foliage. That one I'm going to have it with the foliage coming down, and I think that one I'm going to have it with it kind of going up. That is Mary. That green is shaded spruce. But you could also use garden green. That's one of the colours featured. Or if you've got another green that you like with the paper, then just use what you've got. But that one is shaded spruce. And there are little fir branches on this, and those are painted in shaded spruce. There. So I'm just going to draw along the top of that piece of paper. So I've put it so it's level with the right and left and bottom edges of my white card. And I've drawn a line which marks where that piece of paper is going to be glued. And then the other piece I'm putting level with the right and left and top edge. And again, I'm going to draw a line. I always use a 2B pencil, which is soft, so it rubs out really easily without leaving a mark. So if I hold that up, I'm hoping you can see, I now know which bit of that white is not going to be covered over by the paper. So I can now stamp inside that. So I've got the Season's Greetings stamp from Christmas Classics. I wanted a nice big stamp because I've got quite a long strip of card there to go on, and if I put these two together, I think blueberry is going to be nice, the same colour as my card base. So let me find that ink pad. If you're crafting along and I'm going too fast for you, first of all, my apologies. But second of all, of course, you can always come back to this and rewind it and pause the video and write down measurements and work at your own pace. So I'm hoping that means that it will be useful for you. There we are. Season's Greetings. And I'm going to clean that stamp now. No, I'm not. I'm going to stamp the inside, then I'm going to clean the stamp. Because I'll be using it again on another card. So now I can rub out those pencil lines. And glue my paper on. I actually was a couple of minutes late coming online because I realised that I'd only got the tiniest bit of glue left in the bottom of the bottle on my desk. I had to go and find some more. And my craft room is even more of a mess than usual at the moment because I've got 3 classes in here, 2 prepared and 1 part way through being prepared. I've got a large box, in fact I've got 2 boxes of Stampin' Up goodies which have arrived ready for me to cut up for classes. I've got the craft stuff that I took on holiday with me, which has made it out of the suitcase and into my craft room but hasn't actually been put away. So I think there's a lot of tidying up in my weekend. There we are. So I've just glued those two pieces of paper on there, and now you can see that just picks up as one unit. It's very easy to put the card together. So I'm now going to glue these two layers together. Now I've made a Christmas card, but you could easily make this a birthday card. You could stamp happy birthday in there, and you just have a very pretty birthday card. I think these do have a little bit of a wintry feel to them, this particular pattern of the paper, because of the colours. But it's very easy to forget this time of year when you're madly crafting for Christmas that people actually do have birthdays as well. So a few cards for a winter birthday are not a bad thing. There we are. So I've just layered that up onto my carpet. Oh, and look what I've done. Have you ever done that? I didn't check. Let's quickly get that off. Let's turn the card base round so that we don't have an Australian card. Okay. Try again. Okay, stick that down. That is one thing about this multi-purpose glue. You have a little bit of wriggle room. It's super strong once it's gripped, but you do, if you're quick, have a chance to move things around. There we are. That's better. That card opens properly now. Right, so I'm going to stamp my insert. Now we've got these kind of ferny bits on here, which I like. So I'm going to use the stamp that's also from Christmas Classics and stamp some of those on my insert. So I'm going to use Blueberry Bushel ink again. And this is quite an intense blue, so I'm going to stamp off once, just so it's not quite so bright. And then let's do one in that diagonally opposite corner. There we are. And now that I've stamped that in blue, I'm actually going to stamp the words in a different colour. I think I'm going to stamp them in the same colour as my matting layer on the front, which is Shaded Spruce. So let's clean those off. Find my Shaded Spruce ink. As always, I could do with about 4 times as much space as I've got, and this isn't a small desk. Perhaps I'm just one of those crafters that spreads out, and then I end up crafting in a tiny little bit in the middle. And I know some of you are also like that. There we are. Ooh, that's not very good. Okay, so that gives me a chance to show you what I do when I've got a little bit of skipped stamping like that. So I'm going to pull out my blender pen, and I've actually got a little bit of ink on the edge here. If I didn't have that, I could just pop a little bit of ink on my block like that. So these blender pens are in the main catalogue, the annual catalogue. It's like a felt pen. There's a fluid in here, a clear fluid, and I've just picked up some of that ink on the tip, and I'm just going to sketch in that missing letter, and I go quite carefully and press quite gently to start with. And whilst the result may not be absolutely totally identical to the stamp, it's not bad. I'll pick it up and show you in a sec. And then to clean this, I'm just scribbling it on my grid paper to get any green ink off here, and then it will be ready for me to use with any colour I like next time. These pens come in a pack of 3 and they last for absolutely ages. You can use them for colouring in. If you don't have a big set of felt pens, then you can use them with the ink from your ink pads, or even re-inkers, although the re-inkers are very concentrated in colour. But don't ever, ever, ever put them on your ink pads, because the fluid in here will, some of it will stay on there and it repels the ink, and you'll get white spots on your ink pad. So I always just press a clear block on and get a little bit like that, or you can squeeze your closed ink pad and some of that will go onto the inside of the lid and you can use that as a palette. But there we go. So that S actually looks pretty okay, I think. There we go. So I'll clean that ink pad off first and then stick in my insert, and then I just need a few embellishments, and that's card number 1 done. I'm not going to get all 7 made, but I will show you all 7. So this just needs some little embellishments. So I've got a variety here. I will probably, I think, use these. So these are the Tinsel Gems 4-pack. So we've got 2 kinds of Tinsel Gems in the annual catalogue. There's a 4-pack and a 3-pack. So this is the 4-pack, so it's got 4 colours in it. And the 3-pack's just got 3 colours, but this is shaded spruce, so it's a perfect match for that green. And let me find, I like to take these off with a knife. If you're doing this at home, please be careful. And there's big ones and small ones, and they've got a little bit of sparkle in them, but not an awful lot. So they're quite subtle in the sparkle, but there is a little bit of something there. There we are. So that's the card I've just made, and this is the one I made earlier. I'm just trying to hide those measurements inside. There we are. So they're the same card. The paper pieces are pretty much identical, I think. Yes. But different colours. Hi Jackie, don't worry, it doesn't matter that you forgot. It's lovely that you're here, and you can always catch up with everything else later on afterwards. Once the whole video has posted, you can come back to it any time you like. So which one shall I do next? I've got so many here. I've got so many cards from this year. Oh, here we go. Now this is a really quick and easy one. Square of paper. I've stamped on the paper. I've added a little bit of Wink of Stella to the leaves. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe the light will pick it up, maybe it won't. And then some little tinsel gems. So let's make that one. Once again, I've got the same sized pieces but in different colours, just to give you a change. So let's put that down there, and I'll find a piece of paper. So this is one of the large pieces of paper. My card base is 5 3/4 of an inch by 11.5 inches, scored at 5 3/4. My first contrast layer is 5 5/8 of an inch square. Now I know not everybody likes 1/8 of an inch, so you can change the measurements. You could make that 5 1/2 if you preferred, but I wanted to have several layers with just tiny borders, so that's why I've gone with that. My second contrast layer is 5 3/8 inches square, and my paper is 5 1/4 inches square. And here's the piece of paper. You saw me cut that just now. So this one has a blueberry bushel base, then a layer of Moody Mauve and a layer of Misty Moonlight. The one that I'm going to do, I've got a Moody Mauve base, then a layer of blueberry bushel, then a layer of shaded spruce, and then my paper will come on the top like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp. I've got this lovely clean white area in the bottom, so that's perfect for a sentiment. And I'm just looking at the colours here and thinking, what shall I use? And I think I'm going to use blueberry again. So this time I've got the stamp that says Merry Christmas from, if I can find the set, Brightest Glow. This is a great set. It's all Christmas and New Year greetings. So it's this Merry Christmas here. It's about the right size to go in there without getting kind of lost. So let's ink that up with my Blueberry Bushel ink. And stamp, there we are. Then it's just a case of layering everything. So once again, because I've picked the card colours from the colours which are used on the paper, it's all going to coordinate. Whichever colours I chose, it wouldn't really have mattered. I like to pick a slightly darker colour for the layer that goes behind the paper, because then I think that shows the paper off nicely, because it's a relatively pale paper. If I've got a really dark paper, I would probably choose a lighter card layer behind it, but this is quite light paper. And then I just play around with the colours. Right, let's make sure this is the right way around this time. I haven't given you the sizes of the inserts. I usually go down either 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch from the size of the front of my card. So this card front is 5 3/4 of an inch square. So my insert would typically be either 5 1/2 inches square or 5 1/4 inches square. But sometimes I do play with that, as I have here, because I decided it would be fun to put 2 colours inside. So my white layer is 5 1/4 inches square, and this is Blueberry Bushel, and it's 5 3/8 of an inch square. So I'm just going to stamp that Merry Christmas on here a second time. And then glue that together. If you've got a card which has got a lot of layers on the front, which this one does, then it can become quite kind of front heavy, if you like, and can have a tendency to topple over. So if you find that's happening, then adding a layer to your inside will really help, because it adds more weight to the back of the card and makes it more stable. And then I'll show you how I add a little bit of sparkle to the paper on the front. And that is with my trusty wink of Stella, which is somewhere. Here it is. So if you haven't had one of these before, it's described as a glitter brush. It's got a fluid in here which is full of mica particles, which are very sparkly, and you've got a brush on one end. And I just looked at this and thought, where would I like some sparkle? So I'm just going to brush over the top of these leaves. There's 2 kinds of leaf on here. There's this kind of oval one, and then there's also some rounder ones. And you can't really see anything when you're doing it like this, but when you hold it up to the light, again, I don't know if that's showing or not. I don't think it's showing to you very well. You get this beautiful sparkle effect. I'm shaking this now because I'm going to just squeeze a little bit more of that paint down into the brush. So I've shaken it to encourage all the mica, because otherwise the mica sits at the bottom of the barrel and doesn't come out when you use the brush. And then I just squeezed it very gently. You don't want this flooding through the bristles. And you can see I'm just doing this very quickly. You don't have to be super exact. And it just gives a lovely sparkly shimmer. You can do this on any paper. If you've got a paper that doesn't have foiling or glitter on it and you just want a little something, then this can really work. I have a horrible feeling you're not getting any of that effect, but it is very pretty, believe me. Alright, so now we just need some bling on there, because what's Christmas without bling? So I've gone back again to the Tinsel Gems 4-pack because the blue in this is Blueberry Bushel. Let's just add 3 of those. I often have the idea of a kind of a diagonal line when I add my gems, and beyond that I try not to think too much about where I place them because otherwise it's quite hard to be random. So that's that card, and this is the first one that I made. So 2 cards, the same, slightly different colours. If you need to make a batch of Christmas cards but you get bored making the same thing over and over again, then this is quite a good way of making it feel a little bit different, just changing up the colours. So that's that one. How are we doing for time? 1:45. Let's do another one. I'm just trying to check through and show you a variety. Let's do this one. So this is a non-Christmas one. I did actually emboss my card front here. And then I used a strip of paper backed with some contrast card, and then I stamped on it. I made a thank you card, and I've actually brushed over the words with that Wink of Stella brush. Again, I don't think it's going to pick up, unfortunately. The light is funny here today. We've had brilliant sunshine, we've had black clouds and torrential rain, and now it's just a little bit dull and miserable, so you probably can't see that. So the sizing here, my card base is 11.5 inches by 4 inches, scored at 5 3/4 of an inch. My contrast card is 2.5 by 5 3/4 of an inch, and my paper is 2 1/4 by 5 3/4, which I think must be this one here. Yes, it is. So let's move that out of the way. I've got some different colours here. So I've got Moody Mauve for my card base, then I have some Garden Green, and that's going to go on like that. And rather than embossing my card front, I thought I would stamp it. That's my insert. This is 5.5 inches by 3 3/4 of an inch. So I thought I would stamp it. So I've pulled out Layering Leaves, and I'm actually going to use this little stamp here. This works to fill in these stamped leaves, but I'm actually just going to use it as almost a pattern on the background. So I need to find my Moody Mauve ink pad, and I'm actually going to put a foam mat underneath my work. Let's just put it under the grid paper as well, then I can stamp off the edge without getting my mat inky. Because this is a photopolymer stamp and it's quite a solid image, I'll get a much better impression if I work on a foam mat. So I'm just going to stamp over the top and bottom edges just to add some interest. I'm turning the stamp so I'm not getting a row of these just in a line. My paper's going to come across the middle, so I only need to do the top and bottom. I don't need to waste time and ink stamping all the way across the card, although I probably will get some towards the middle. Let's see if that's enough. Yes, it is. Just trying to move some things out of the way. Alright, so I'm going to stamp my paper before I stick it down, then if I have a disaster I have got the chance to do something about it rather than having it already glued to my card, and I think I'm going to use garden green for this because I'm using a garden green card layer. So if I can find my thank you so much stamp, that is from this same set. So those were the leaves and this is the thank you so much. There are some really nice greetings in that layering leaf stamp set. If you haven't found it, it's in the annual catalogue and it's worth a look. Now I've just put a really nice, look at that, really nice inky fingerprint on that. So with some stamps you could stamp over the top and it wouldn't notice. I'm not sure if that one's going to or not. I think it's going to show. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do and then look out on my Facebook page another time and you'll be able to see it. What I'm actually going to do is stamp this on a piece of white card, pop it on there and probably cut a flag end in it here. So I've got my thank you actually on a separate piece of card, but I haven't got any within reach. So that's what's going to happen with that. Then that will glue on there and that will go on there. And it will look something like that, except the sentiment won't be written, won't be stamped directly on the paper. And I stuck my finger in my ink pad when I opened it up, which was not a very careful thing to do. Never mind. Let's pop all those bits together so that I know what I'm doing with that. See, I make mistakes all the time. Sometimes people say, how is your stamping always so good? And I say it really, really, really is not. Here we go. Here's one which is the same kind of idea, but this is a square card rather than a rectangular card. And I've made a Christmas card. So here's the measurements. My card base is 5 inches by 10 inches and I've scored it at 5 inches. My contrast layer is 4 3/4 inches square and my paper, one of those pieces I cut at the beginning, is 4 1/2 inches square. So let's see if I can find a piece of paper that looks like, okay, so my piece of paper looks slightly different because do you remember when I had the cutting plan? This strip here, I cut across from the bottom, measuring from the bottom, and actually on my original I had cut from the top. Now it doesn't matter, so let's just work with what we've got because it's going to be pretty no matter. There we are. So on this one again, I'm going to stamp on the paper, but let's use that same stamp I was going to use before I stuck my finger in the ink on the last card. And let's make this a thank you card. And then I can also put Wink of Stella on it and show you how I did that. So I've used garden green ink, which is the same colour as my card base. And I'm going to stick all those together and then I'll use my Wink of Stella. I like to let that ink thoroughly dry. It's touch dry pretty much immediately. But because the Wink of Stella is water-based, I like to just let the stamping really be dry before I add Wink of Stella on top. It's not going to run across the card, but sometimes if it's very fresh ink, the colour will pick up on the brush tip. And then it's just something else to clean off, so let's avoid that if we can. So I've attached the paper to a piece of Misty Moonlight card and then I'm adding it to my garden green card base. And I'm going to take my Wink of Stella and I'm just going to follow the thank you letters and brush over those. So much is much smaller and finer and I think that's probably a step too far for me, but the rest of it is not too bad. Now if you are good at italic writing, which I am not, you can actually follow the kind of the thick top and the thinner bottom like that, pressing harder at the top and then lighter at the bottom. I sort of do that, but I'm not awfully good. But you don't have to do this perfectly. If there's a tiny little bit of sparkle over the edge of your letter, first of all, probably no one's going to notice, and secondly, it's Christmas, or it's birthdays, or it's thank yous, and all of those are made better with a little bit of sparkle on your cards, so nobody's going to mind if there's a little bit of sparkle somewhere else. There we go. Again, I don't know if that's going to be picked up on the camera. I suspect it won't, but those letters are now green sparkly rather than plain green, which is in my book a good thing. All right, now I'm going to come back with this little pine branch stamp and stamp on my insert. So what colour shall we go with? I think we'll go with Misty Moonlight, which is the same colour as it's painted on the paper. Just a little bit, just so you've got something extra on the insert. And then I'm going to stamp. No, I'm not going to stamp. I'm not going to stamp anything else in there because this is a thank you card, so it gives me room to write, doesn't it? Okay. And then we need some little gems or something on here, and then it's all done. And then I will show you the rest of the cards because an hour is very nearly up. I don't know where the time goes on a Friday. So what should we use? Let's use some of these. So these are the tinsel gems, but the 3-pack. I've almost finished these. I must order some more. These have Fresh Freesia, Lost Lagoon and Misty Moonlight in them. The colours are so pretty. But we'll use the Misty Moonlight ones then. It's all going to match nicely. There we are. So that is my finished, oops, caught the camera stand. My finished version of that. Oh, things falling all over the place here. There we are. That's the first one I did. Different colours, and it's a Christmas card. And actually, as you can see, the paper panel is different because I cut from the other end of that long strip of paper, but it doesn't matter because, you know, it just all works. It's lovely paper. So I'll set those aside for the minute, and let me pull out some other cards I made with the other pieces. So this is a birthday card. This I made with that piece of paper. Let's put the measurements down, and then you can always come back and look at them if you want to make a card using these measurements. Again, the pattern on this is completely different to this one because it's that strip where I cut from the top and then I cut from the bottom on the second time round. And I used the bow punch for some little leaf accents here, which I just tucked behind the paper layer. I wrapped some ribbon all around and tied it at the top. I cut these circles using the new Deckled Circles dies. Those are in the Autumn and Winter mini catalogue. And that's So Happy to Celebrate You is from Layering Leaves. And I put a happy birthday in the middle. That one is from Go To Greetings. You've seen me use this set hundreds of times now. So that's that one. What else have I got to show you? Another square one here. Let's pop the measurements down. So that used this piece of paper here, I think. Yeah, that one there. And again, I use the tinsel gems. This time I put them on top of the blueberries, which are painted on the paper. I also added a little bit of Wink of Stella, so we've got lots of sparkle going on here. And I embossed the layer behind as well. This little flag is from, I can never remember what he's called, Nested Essentials dies. One of those flags there. So that's that one. I'll pull all 7 cards out in just a moment and show you the whole set. And then last of all, there's lots of white space on this card. I spent ages turning my piece of paper around and deciding which way to stamp it, because, you know, it's lovely. Any way you put it, it doesn't really matter. The measurements for this one are here. And these, I don't know what shape this is. If anybody knows what shape that is, tell me. It's a kind of a lozenge shape with these little square ends. These are also in the Nested Essentials set. Then I just tied some ribbon round. This sparkly ribbon is so lovely. And I added some of the flat pearls on there. So that is that one. And there's another one. I've obviously forgotten to tell you something, because one of these I actually stamped some fern fronds on the card. Let me find it. I'll spread all these out on my desk and show you. That one. That little square one there. So you've seen me stamp with that stamp, which is from the Christmas Classics, this image here. And I just added some stamping on top of the paper, just because, you know, I can. Right, so can I find one of everything? I probably can't. There we go, that's one of those. One of those. We need 7 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Trying to find which one haven't I shown you. I've shown you one of those. I have got so many cards on my desk. This one, there we are. All right, let me push some of this stuff out of the way and see if I can get all 7 cards on. So 7 cards from one piece of patterned paper that was 12 inches square, I think is pretty good going. And if you've got paper you absolutely love and are struggling to use, then at least you know you're going to get lots and lots made from it. There we are. So I showed you how to make most of those. Let's move the camera along a little bit. Is that the right way? You know what I'm like? No, it's not. It's the wrong way. Honestly, you'd think I would know by now, wouldn't you? Which way to move things. I can never remember whether it's the opposite way I want it to show or the same way I want it to show. There we are. Now I'll be putting proper photos of these up on this Facebook page over the next week or so, so you'll be able to see those properly. If you've got any questions at all, then obviously let me know. Now I'm just going to turn the camera back up to say a proper goodbye to you. Bear in mind that I can't cover you over because my washi tape was not working, so everything's going to move. So look away now, and then I will tell you when you can look back at me. Let's just unmirror image me.